And I've got a grayscale one here and a color one just to replicate what we're doing with the grid assignment. You don't need to do anything on the grayscale one. But this one here, I've got some more stuff. So I've got a layer called picket fence. See that? I'll select that whole picket fence. The way I selected it was in my layer that said picket fence. I just clicked over here. You can click on this circle. It says house. You see the house is selected. You can click here. The grass is selected. You can click here. The sky selected. Or, I could come in and click this white spot and then say select same fill color. That would work as well on this one, as long as there was nothing else like that. But I've organized it so all you have to do is click picket fence, that's selected. Okay, next step, open it, lock all layers except picket fence. Okay, I'll do that. Just lock them by clicking the lock here. Select all the white shapes. Then I'm going to go to, in the properties panel, check vertically align bottom. All the white fence should align at the bottom. Let's try that. Here they're selected, and I go to the Pathfinder, and I'm in Essentials Classic, so it's not where I'm telling you. That's actually up top here. Oh, I deselected them. Try again. Okay, now they're it's these alignment tools. So I'm going to go to Window, Workspace, Essentials again, and now it's should appear in the Pathfinder tool here. I'm sorry, in the properties panel here. I need alignment tools, and those are expand tools. Where are they hiding? They should be in here in the properties panel. Window, align. That's where they are, and usually they'll pop up. Usually you'll just find them here. I'll select just two, see what happens. Okay, see the alignment tools happen there. So that's what I'm looking for. But I've got them open here on a separate align. If they didn't show up, I must have something that's making them not want to show up. So I don't really know why they weren't showing up, but in any event, in layers here, I selected all of the picket fence, and then in the alignment, which should be in the properties panel, and for whatever reason I'm not seeing it. Usually you'll find it in here, but I just open align, and I'm looking for what happens if I click all align horizontal left. Boom, they all go to this left edge. It's aligning to the artboard. Okay, I don't want that, but I want them, you see they're all at different heights. And so if you look at these alignments, look right here, vertically align at the bottom right here, click, there, they're all aligned. And then some of them are all bunched up here. I've got one at a start spot there and one at a start spot there. Chapter 2 in the book, which you should have already done, explains this, so I'm going to go quick. But there's distribute. So those are aligned to the top, aligned to the bottom. And then these ones, so that's just aligning them at the top of each other. I want to distribute them. So these are distributes. And so it really doesn't matter which one of these in this instance, because I've got one at the beginning of the artboard and one at the other end. So I'll just click distribute, horizontally distribute right here, click, and there we got a nice picket fence. That was easy. And that's really all we need that one for. That's just show you how to align things. I've got a nice picket fence. Okay, I'm going to go back to my layers. I'll unlock everything. All right, next step. Done that. Align, done that. Unlock all areas using the artboard. We're duplicating the artboard, so we're doing that. So this is essentially phase 2 done. So I'm on this assignment, I'm just replicating what we're doing with the grid. Just hopefully it will sink in. So that's like phase 2, just grayscale. This is phase 3, just color. And so then I'm getting this artboard. I made sure nothing's locked. unlock all. There, I had something locked there as well. And then I'm taking this artboard just like I did on the grid assignment, and I'm copying that over. I'm holding Option or Alt if you're on a PC to copy it. I'm also holding Shift so that it stays in alignment. And then I let go of the mouse and then let go of the buttons. And then I'm going to hit V. And so I've got a copy here. I'll go ahead and lock all of these, select them just like I told you to do on the grid, Object, Lock Selection, Command or Control 2. Okay, so now we can start adding some pizzazz to this. We're going to learn to use Gradient Tool. We're going to add custom gradients to the grass, the bushes, the windows, the sky. We're going to use the Gradient Tool. The quick key is G. We're going to customize gradients by adding gradient tabs in the annotator or panel to try to get a fill for each. And if you can't find the gradient panel, go to Window Gradient. And so for the roof and grass, remember that dark values recede and light values advance. So darker gradient areas of the grass or roof will look further away than light areas. So I'm going to start on that one. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select, and I could just do it on the house layer, or I could make another layer. Maybe I'll do another layer for patterns, but I'll do just this house layer here. I'm going to copy that, Command C. And then I could add patterns to that. So I copied that and I could add patterns above. So I'll say, all right, I want some patterns. I'll make a layer for patterns, just like I showed before, patterns. And I will paste on this layer, Command F, paste in front. So now I have two roofs, right? And then I want to fill that with a good roof color. I'll go to swatches, window swatches. And this is a different document than my other. So remember before when I had swatches that I loaded, I don't see the animal skins. I'm back to just those two layers there. And so I'll need to do the same thing I did before. Click on the swatches, open swatch library, patterns, and I'm going to go to basic graphics. I'm going to go to lines on this one. And here's all my lines, and this will be good roof stuff. So I'll say lines, what's going to be some good shingles? That, no, wrong direction. How about that? That's not bad. So, you know, whatever I think will be good for shingles. And I decide I like that. Okay. And that may work fine for the roof shingles, just as is. But then remember, I've got to have, you know, patterns. I've got to have opacity and blending modes. And so I'm going to tell this being multiply, change nothing. Why? Because black plus brown is still black. Then I'm going to change the opacity. Oh, now that did something. Look, I went to 40% opacity and look what it did. Where this was black before, now it's brown. Why? Because I just added some black to the brown and that made a darker brown. And so if I see this, I know that you have used opacity and blending modes. How do I know you use blending modes? Well, if it's normal blending mode, that's going to be an ugly gray. See that? Because it's just a tint of that black. So if you go to, and multiply is going to be a good one for you. Darken would work just fine for this one as well. Screen might work for you as well. It's going to make things lighter. But in this instance, I want the darker, and I've knocked the opacity down. So there we go. That's working pretty well. I've got pattern on that. I'm going to go back to my layers here and move zoom stuff. And actually didn't have that on the right layer. I had that on the house layer. I cut that, Command X, I go to patterns, I'll paste it in front on patterns. So I'm going to lock that now, that patterns layer. And ooh, look at this, the chimney got covered up. Maybe I'll want to cut that chimney and put it on the patterns layer, paste it behind for starters. See, it's pasted behind. I could go to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. Okay, so it's not covered up anymore. And but I want a pattern on it as well because it's brick. So I'll copy that. I'll paste in front again. I've got 2 layers of the same thing. And I'll say, how about some bricks? Does that look like bricks? Not really. That was basic graphics. Lines, what else do you got for me, Adobe? I'll click in the swatches, open swatch libraries, patterns, basic graphics, textures. Maybe there's a good texture. And again, that's small for me. So I'll go to large list view, and there's all these different textures. And I think I like that. So, or that, or maybe lines were better, or there's other ones. But those are the open swatch library patterns. There's dots as well. And then there's the decorative, those are going to be like things. So like if I go to decorative legacy, see, those are really complex patterns that are, you know, none of those are going to do too much on this design, I don't think. But I say, well, what about honeycombs? Those are fantastic. I'm going to scale that again. So I'll say, let's be smaller. I'll say, let's go 50%, but not transform the object, just the pattern. Click OK. So that doesn't look like it's great, but then I go to patterns here. I change the opacity to what's screen going to do, what's multiply going to do, and what's opacity going to do. And so there's a pattern, and I can click off of that. And so I've got patterns. Okay, so on the assignment, I said dark areas look further away than light areas. What am I talking about there? I'm clicking on this layer again. So not on my patterns, but my layer beneath. So what happens if your object disappears? Like you change it to a pattern and all of a sudden your object disappears. It's important to copy and paste in front. So I've got 2 layers there, same exact vector. If you look at the vector, it looks the same, but there's 2 different layers of that vector. And so this is filled with brown, and I want it to be a darker and lighter. I could do that with a gradient, or I could just go on top of what I already have with a gradient. And that's what I'm going to do first. I'll do a custom gradient. So I want you to do custom gradients. And there's a gradient right here, white and black. I'm going to click it. And here's what I have. I have a radial gradient. I'm not a radial gradient, a linear gradient. I'm going to hit G for the gradient tool. You can see there's that linear gradient tool. It's the this is called the gradient annotator. If you don't see it, view, show, or hide gradient annotator is right there. You should see it. And so if I click with the gradient tool, which is right here, if I click and drag, you see it's dragging that gradient. If I drag really short, it's going black right here to white right there, and then this is the space between. If I drag really long, mostly my gradient is outside of that shape. If I hold shift when I drag, it will go straight up and down, or 45-degree angles or 90-degree angles like that. I want it to be straight up and down. And so I started that gradient up here and I ended it here. And it's a gray roof now, but I want a different color roof. And so also I'm going to pull up the gradient tool here, window gradient. And so you see here's the gradient tool. I'm a linear gradient. I can change the angle this way as well. I could say, change that. You see it changes the angle like that. I never do that. I just pull a new gradient and I hold shift when I'm doing it in this instance. Okay, so I want to change those colors. And so these color stops here, this black one here, it corresponds with this gradient slider as well. So I'm going to double click right here on this, double click, opens up the swatch panel. And I'll say I want this dark, kind of brownish gray color on that one. And actually, I think I want that for the top color. So I'm going to click that color. No, I want a lighter color than that. I'll click a lighter color for that. And then for this dark bottom one, I want, I'll leave it with that. And so I'm saying darker looks farther and closer is lighter. And so what could I do? I could reverse that gradient and I could re-pull it the other direction. So I pull it this way, it's light on the top and dark on the bottom. I pull it from the bottom up, it's the opposite. It's lighter in the front, it's darker in the bottom. Or I could click right up here to reverse it. And so I'm going to do that. So it's lighter in the front, darker in the back. And I decide I want it even darker in the back. I can double click either here on this gradient panel or here. It'll bring me the same thing. And I'll say, I'm going to click CMY, case slider. I'm going to go to color. Well, let's double click that. And I'll tell that to be CMYK, not RGB. RGB would probably work, but it's just going to be easier to show you a CMYK because you can see that's 55 cyan, which is blue, 60 magenta, which is pink-ish, like this color here, yellow, 65. Y is 40. So I can just add Y, black, and it will make that darker. Here's another neat thing with the sliders. I can hold Option while I drag, Shift while I drag those. And you see they'll slide in unison. So that's kind of cool as well. So that makes it easier to get just a darker tint of that color. So that worked. And so now I've customized that gradient. Last thing to show you on the gradient slider here, I could do it here or here. You notice this little triangle. What is it? It's the midpoint. So whatever your top color is, and whatever are your left color and your right color, in this case, top and bottom, that's the midpoint. I can move that midpoint. I'm going to move it here and you'll see the gradient change. If I want it to be more abrupt, light, and then get abruptly dark, I'll do that. Or I could go the other way. It's dark all the way and it's light. You may want to leave that right in the middle, but often you want that to change. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there for now. I've got a custom gradient. So on this piece here, I've got this pattern here, this shingle, and I've got this piece there. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the grass. But for the grass, I'm going to do something different. I've got the grass here, and I could just say, I'm going to copy that. So Command C, Command F, and I'm going to just go back to this gray. I usually just start with, the black and white gradient here, G for gradient, and then I'll pull it. And again, I want it to be dark to light. So I'll have the darkest color up here. And I could tell that to be grass. Or here's a neat thing. So you see I've got black to white right here. And then if I go to my layers here, remember I'd copied that. So with this darker one selected, I could go to my opacity and I could say, what happens if I multiply that? And oh, look what I've got. And then maybe I'll knock the opacity down a little bit. So I could do that with just its own custom gradient. Or in this instance, what I did was just added dimensionality or depth by just putting gray. So the darker looks further away. So that's fun. And so you're going to want to save this. I haven't saved it, so I better save. And that's an oddity that I would go this long without saving anything. But so I'm just going to File, save as, and then my last name, my first name, and I'll leave house pizzazz, the month, day, year, 022823, and save. Okay, and that's what you're going to turn in, just an Illustrator file like that. Okay, so that's fun. I want to do something fun with these bushes. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to select all of the bushes. And I'm going to give them a grid. I'll just do one. I'm going to select this bush, and I'm going to click. I'm going to do a gradient like that. Okay, well, how did I do that? I just got this black and white. This time I want a radial gradient. So I want it lighter in the middle and darker on the edges. And I hit G for the gradient tool, or I could just change it here on the gradient panel. And so here I'm going to say I want for this lighter color, I'll pick here a light green. That's pretty. And then I'll double click on this dark one, and I'll pick, and I wish that'll work. A darker color. There's a dark green. A little too, didn't like the color so much. So now I can move the sliders around. I'll go 100 yellow, and I'll go 100 blue, and I'll little more magenta to neutralize it, and little black. And see there, I've got a nice dimensional gradient. And if I wanted to save that gradient, you can see I've done it before. I like what I'm seeing there. And in my swatches panel here, I could say that's a good bush color. I'm going to go to, in swatches panel, I could say new swatch. This is one way to do it. I'll show you another way. And I'll call this round bush. And I'll click OK. And there it is, added to the swatches. And see, last time I did it, I didn't add it. So that's nice. But what if I wanted the gradient to not be dead center in the middle? So here's the gradient annotator. I just hit G for the gradient tool, and watch, I can move this annotator, and look what I get. I get a more dimensional fill. The shape didn't move at all. See that? The shape doesn't move. Or I could just pull a new gradient. So I've got just a little spot there. I could move that around. Well, it's mostly dark. I want it bigger than that. I can grab it and pull it longer. I can change the shape a little bit like this, or I can just re-pull the gradient. I'm just going to re-pull the gradient and then move this around to where I like it. And I'll do it one more time. If you want to re-pull the gradient, don't try clicking on it and pulling it at the same spot. You'll just move your sliders around. So click and pull a little bit further away, and then you can grab your annotator and move it. And then I decided I wish this was a little more yellow. And so I can click it. I'll just pull, it's already 100% yellow, so I'll have to knock the other stuff off a little bit. There, a little more yellow. I like that. All right, so I'm happy with that. And I wish the other ones had the same thing. So I could select all of these. So I'm going to select, I'm going to hold Shift to select these other ones, or I could have gone to select same fill color. I just held Shift to select them all. And now I could come here and I could click this, and they all have that color, or I could get the eyedropper tool and click it, and they would all have that color. But notice they're all deselect. They're all in the center, these new ones. So then I'd have to hit G for the gradient annotator, and I'd have to move it like that. So look, these look very like spherical balls now. And so they're all the same color. I just had to move that gradient annotator a few times, or for each one. And there, I've got nice, nice gradient, dimensional looking bushes. Maybe I want to do that same thing with the doorknob. This time I'll say radial gradient, and look, it's that green color. Or I could have started with black and white, but this time I'll just work from this green one. On this one, I'll say I want that to be 100% yellow and like a 20% magenta. And like a 45 black. And then I'll come to this one. I don't want it green. This one, I'm just going to go 100% yellow and nothing else. And there's that doorknob, but I'm not really filling it. I wish the dimensionality started at the edges. So you see what I did here? I grabbed this midpoint and I moved it closer to the edge. So I got a doorknob, and I kind of wish it was a little darker still at the edges. So I'll double click that and I'll add a little black to the edge. And so there I've got some more dimensionality on that doorknob. And that's fun. Okay, so that's a custom gradient. And I could save that and call it doorknob if I wanted. But now I want some texture. So I'm going to select these things like that, or easier, since they're the only things colored that way, select same fill color. No shortcut for that. Fill color. And oh, hey, look at that. I had made a mistake. I had the grass selected, and so I colored my grass that color as well. So no big. I'll fix that. So I've got just these bushes selected. I'm going to copy them, Command C. And remember, I made a layer for patterns. I'm going to paste them in front on that. And so I always show you guys that I pasted it on front like this, but I never do that when I'm really working, because I know I pasted it on front. And so I've got some textures here in the basic lines and graphics, and what's going to be a good texture for bushes. And so I like this mezzotint dot, mezzotint. That's pretty good. Ripple, that might be pretty fun for bushes. Sticks, I think I'll go with ripple on this one. Okay, and then I'm going to change the scale of that. Again, double click the scale tool, S for the scale tool, and see, it made them smaller. Why to do that? Because I need to uncheck right here, transform objects. And so now I have a 50% scale on that. That's going to work good. And I say, okay. And then I'm going to go again to the properties panel, and I'll change the blending mode. And I'm going to tell my blending mode to be screen. And that gives me a lighter color. The only way to get that with these patterns is that blending mode. And I'll knock it down. And there, I've got some pretty fun bush pattern here. I can stack patterns too if I want. So I'll do that again. I'll copy, I'll paste in front. And in addition, I'll do like a mezzotint dot. And so, but on that one, maybe I'll do a different blending mode. Maybe I'll do darken for the mezzotint dot, and I'll knock the opacity down even more. And so I've got a more complex pattern going. I've got two patterns going, and that's fine. They're both scaled. They're both, and so I've got some nice bushes there. I had accidentally messed up that grass, but I kind of like this new color better. So I think I'll stick with it. I'm going to select this one, I drop, and then throw this one away. I don't need it. But this needs to be a linear gradient. So I'll hit G for gradient tool, and I'm going to pull the gradient. Oh, it's a radial gradient. So I'm going to make it a linear gradient to start. And then I'll pull it bottom to top. I'm holding shift while I do it. And I got a nice linear gradient. Maybe I'll move them. I like the midpoint pretty much where it was. And that's working for me. Okay, save that. And so that's just what we're going to do. We're going to put texture on everything. Put give it some wood grain here. I'm going to copy that door, copy, and I'm going to paste in front, and then I'm going to go to my textures I had here. What's a good door texture? Maybe there's one that works well here. That kind of looks like bricks, lines. I like that one. It looks like door slats. I'm going to stay with that one. I'm going to do the same thing with the house here. I'm going to copy. I'm going to paste in front. And I'll get there's a texture there. I'll change the scale just for practice, letter S for the scale tool. And I'll tell that to be 150. I'll get bigger ones this time. Uncheck transform objects. And then I'll click OK. And then I'll change the blending mode to, I'll go to screen on this one. It'll seem like mortar a little bit. It's too intense. I'll knock the opacity down. That's a requirement as well, down to like a 50, 30, 28%. I like that. Okay, that's coming together. I need windows. And so I've already made window gradients. You see that? That looks like blinds. I could hit G and pull the gradient, but how did you get that gradient, Mr. Dennis? I'll show you. Okay, I have this window selected, and I just start with this gray gradient. It's a linear gradient. I'll hit G for gradient tool. I'll pull from corner to corner, and that doesn't look like a good window color at all, but I'll click on either here, the gradient tool, and you can expand this gradient tool if it gets complex, and this one will, so we'll want to do that. And I'll say I want to start with, I don't want black for my window color, so I'll click no black, and I'll say I'll start with 100 cyan. And that's pretty good, and maybe I want a little magenta in it as well. Okay, I'll start there. And so what makes things look shiny is dark and light, bright lights and darker darks. And so I want a kind of a striation effect with this. So I'm going to move this white slider. I can move it here or here. See, it moved here, it moved here. I'll move this time, watch this one. I'll move this one over here. And so it's mostly white, and I got this little bit of blue, but here's a neat thing. I could click anywhere. If I click, it's just gonna put another stopper where that color is, and I don't really want that stopper. I can just pull down and throw it away. But I wanna play leapfrog here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold the Option key if I'm on a Mac, the Alt key if I'm on a PC, and drag, and look, it's duplicating. I'm gonna go past that white one, and look what it did. And then I'm gonna do the same thing with the white one. I'm gonna hold Option or Alt and drag it. I'm just gonna do that multiple times, and I'm getting this kind of neat striation. So I've got a window shape there. If I want one more, I'll drag that. So I got all these, bright swipes. Now I could, with this one, I could eyedrop. It's gonna look what it does. It makes it straight again. So I could change it here to like a 45-degree angle. That's gonna be the opposite direction. So I want a minus 45. And there, it's exactly the same. Or I could have just pulled the gradient again. So that's fun. Let's say I wanted to have some drapes on this window, and you don't have to do this, but I'll copy this one, Command C, Command F. So it's that same window again. But this time I'm going to tell that gradient to be, I'll go to my swatches, and I'll just start with this black and white one. And I'm going to go G for gradient, and I'm going to pull the gradient this way, and I'm going to stop it right there. And so I'm going to make this be curtains. I'll double click here, and I'll say I want it to be like, this color of curtain. And then I'm going to copy that. I'll just drag over here, and I'm going to throw the white one away. So now I've got two color stops. They're both the same thing. and it's filling this whole, so well, that does nothing. But now I'll click in the middle, makes another color stop. I'm going to double click that. I'm going to make it a lighter color. I'm going to hold Option and, sorry, I'm going to hold, I'll move it to the middle, double click. I'm going to hold Shift. It's going to move them all. And look, I got a lighter drape kind of thing. So I'm going to do the similar thing that I did on the window, because drapes kind of, have this light, dark, light. See that? And I want them to be fairly even, because that's kind of what curtains do. And so you see this light color here, everything beyond that point is that color. And I stopped my gradient, and so it's going to be that color from here on out. But then I decided I wish these drapes were just partially open. And so I'm going to do one last one there. And then I'm going to go, okay, from this point, I'm going to move another swatch right next to it. And I'll open up the gradient tool over here again. And I'm going to expand that so you can see. And I decided I want my curtains to end there. And so you see I have two swatches here. So here's the one thing that's super important that I haven't taught you yet. And it's how I did the eyes on, or back to just real quick on the examples of students' work. Remember, we looked at the phase 4 examples, and there was like the this eye here, or this little highlight here on the eyes, or these little highlights on the eyes here, or the ovals there. This is not a separate shape here. It's not a little oval. It's a quarter circle. So how do we get this hard line here? How do we get these small shapes here? Answer, transparency. So I've got this last swatch. It's selected. You can tell it's selected because it's got a highlight on it. And look right here, opacity. Oh, we hadn't noticed that anymore. Let's take that opacity all the way to 0. And hey, look what just happened. From that point on, it's 0 opacity, and I've got the curtains closed. I can open them or close them that way, kind of like real curtains. So that's fine. I'll elapse that. And I could, if I wanted, I could copy, paste in front. I could get the rotate tool, letter R is the rotate tool, double click it and tell it to rotate it. What's 90 degrees going to look like? It'll do that, right? So I wanted 180 degrees, right? So 180, and it copied it. And I've got the blinds open the other way. Other way I could do that, I have that copied, right? Or I'm not going to copy, I'm going to delete. I'll show you another way to do it. I'll select this one, and I'll hit the letter O. The letter O is the reflect tool. It's right here. So teaching you some tools, and you see that's what it does. So I'm going to, I could just click here in the middle, or I could double click on the tool. I'll double click on the tool, and it says I want to flip it vertical or horizontal. If I say horizontal, I can click preview. Doesn't seem like it's doing anything. I click vertical. Okay, that's what I want it to do. And then I'll click copy here. And so it copied it. So I've got on this window, I've got one layer that's half of the drapes, this layer that's at half, and then a gradient here. So 2 custom gradients, but what does the vector look like? Just a rectangle. You see that? 1 rectangle, 2 rectangles, 3 rectangles, and all together they make a cool, like the drapes are open. And I like that. And I decide I'm going to tell this one, I'll copy, paste in front. Then I drop on this one. And oh, look, they turned on an angle. I'll hit G for gradient tool. Got the gradient tool here. And I'll just pull these. It's too wide. So I'm just going to have a sliver of drape. I think I'll have these drapes all the way closed. So I'll do that. And then I'm going to, again, get the reflect tool, copy it. And there, those drapes are closed. It's still 3 and I could have, okay, Mr. Dennis, couldn't you have just pulled that gradient all the way over? Yeah, but it got too fat. Well, couldn't you have doubled up the amount of stops? Yeah, I could have. But instead I just duplicated it. So the drapes are closed on that window. Why are they closed? Last thing before I do anything else fun. I'm gonna put some texture on this grass. So copy, paste in front. Now there's 2 layers of grass. I'm gonna go to some pattern that I think looks like good grass kind of thing. USGS marsh. And so here's the thing I don't want to see. I don't want to see USGS marsh on your grass looking like this. If I see that black, I know you haven't done a blending mode. If I see that you screened it and it's just white, I know you used a blending mode, but you didn't. So any of these black, not just USGS marsh, any of these could be sticks or anything. You don't need to make a custom gradient. You're just manipulating the gradients we have. So I'm changing the opacity on it, and then I'm also changing the scale. So the scale tool, S for scale tool, double click, and let's tell those, I'm going to tell those to be smaller. I'll tell them to be 50%. How's that going to look? Uncheck transform objects. And last thing, I'm going to change my opacity even lighter because they look too light. So as I check that, just want to make them real subtle. So I went to like a 12% gradient. So now they don't look white, they don't look black, they look like a light green. So that's what blending mode. And maybe that's too small now that I see it. So I think I'll go the other way. I'll tell them to be 200%, 250. Let's see how that looks. Well, they're small. They're smaller because I had scaled them already small. So I have to go to a larger amount. So I'm telling this to be 400, which would be massive if that's where you started. But since I started with even more, I'm going to 600. Since I started with such a small texture. So there we go. And so I'm gonna do one more fun thing. I'm going to open the file Alien Flying Saucer that I was having a hard time downloading. Okay, so I've got this one done. Whoops, not that one. Not that one. This one. I've got pizzazz everywhere. I'm hitting save. Now we can have just a little bit more fun with it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lock my my sky. I'm going to do one more change. My sky. It's daytime, and so I'm going to bring my my alien flying saucer over. I'll select everything here. I'm going to copy. I'll close it. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to hit. I'll make a layer called aliens. I'll name it We Come in Peace. Okay. And I'm going to paste my alien flying saucer there, and I'll group it and I'll put it right here. And so that's fun. But do aliens ever come in the daytime? They never come in the daytime. So I'm going to select my sky. And so I'm going to make a pretty custom gradient. So this is the last gradient I'll do. Then I'll move on. I'm going to go to my swatches. I'll start with it's sunset. So gradient, G for gradient. I'll have a light at the top. I don't want to drag it down beyond the grass. So it's orange to yellow. So that's pretty, but it's still not, they don't come at sunset. they come at night. So I'll make a new swatch. I'm going to pull that up. I'm going to double click here and I'll click on like a night sky color. Ooh, that's pretty. And that's fun. If I want that to be more nighttime, I could say, all right, let's move these tabs down. Maybe I'd get rid of this bottom tab. So I'll just have yellow on the bottom. I'll move that down. I'm sliding these down here. It's going to become more nighttime-ish, right? Because I'm putting more space between this annotation and that one. That's pretty. I like that. What if I got rid of that one? Yeah, that was ugly. Didn't like that. I'll undo. I like that pretty orange color. But I'm going to bring it down further. I'm making it more closer to night. And now I decide what, as the sun sets, I decide I want a darker color up here. So I'm going to duplicate this swatch by holding Option, pull that down. That's pretty. And on this last swatch, I'm going to double click and you see here's the colors, 100 cyan, 100 magenta. I'll add some black to it. And there we got much more of a dark. I'm going to like a 70, 80%. That's pretty. It's a pretty night sky. And it looks more like alien season. Okay, so what does the instructions say to do? Let's go. So I'll hit save before I do anything else. Save. And then I'm going to my instructions here on the lecture activity. And so this is all the alignment tools, the gradient tools, the pattern. We've done all that. Scale patterns, done all that. Blending modes, transparency, done that. Even more pizzazz. Open that file, download it. Use the group selection tool to select the blue glass canopy. Okay, what's the group selection tool? The direct selection tool will work as well. If I use the regular selection tool, it's going to select everything. So I don't want that. The group selection tool is hiding under the direct selection tool. I click on just the canopy, and what does it say to do? It says to reduce the opacity, change the opacity to reveal who's flying our flying saucer. So it's selected. I could lift it up and we could see. But I'll say, okay, let's reduce the opacity. Oh, here we go. So that's going to kind of look more like glass. See that? Semi-transparent glass. Maybe too transparent at 22%. So I'll go to like 40 or 50. I can see the background behind. A cow's flying it. All right. And it's aliens. And this cow actually was my demo on the 2500 square grid on another semester. But I made him come back and attack the house. And let's make a story here. Why is he attacking the house? I'm going to select, drag over here. I'll copy that. I'm going to ungroup this. Object, ungroup. It may not have been grouped to begin with. I can't remember. There's that piece. I've got some custom gradients here. I'll throw all that away. This one here, I'm going to introduce something new to you. It's called a clipping mask. And so I've made that cow have a clipping mask. And I'm going to go to Object. So this shape here, the canopy shape, I've clipped it to. I'm going to go to Object. And I'm going to go to Clipping Mask, Release right here. There we go. And now that canopy shape, I can just throw away. So there's another cow. And so what's the story here? I'm going to take that cow. I'm going to move the cow here. And it's climbing in the bushes. I don't want it climbing in the bushes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move it to the bottom. So I'll go, and it's right here. We come in piece. I'll say Object, Arrange, Move to Back. So since it's all the way to the back, right? Why is it still on top of the bushes? Well, look what layer it's on. That layer is still above. You know, the bushes are clear down here in the grass layer. So I'll have to take that cow, I'll cut it, Command X. I'll go to the layer that the bushes and the grass are on. So the bushes are on that layer there. The house layer is there. The bushes are on the house layer. So I'm going to go to the grass layer and I will say paste in front or paste in back. Doesn't matter. I'll go paste in front, Command F, or paste in place. So now look what's happening. The cow's now behind the bushes, hiding behind the house. Why? The house is up here. The bushes are on the grass layer. So it's hunting for that cow. We learned other tools. We learned the reflect tool. I'll hit the reflect tool. O, the quick key. I've got that selected. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hold Option. When I hold Option, I'll get a little ellipses at the bottom of the tool. And that means when I click it, it's going to bring up the reflect panel. And I'm going to click Copy. And so now I've got another cow here. And it's a little too exact, same as that one. So, and this time I decided I want it in front of the house. And so I'm going to cut that one, Command X, and here's the house layer. I'll say Command F. And that's, that gets problematic. Well, what if I want it behind the bushes? Okay, well, now I have a problem because the bushes are, I want it behind the bushes, but in front of the house. Well, the bushes and the house are on separate layers. What I'd have to do is I'd have to select all these, Command 3. I'd have to select all of these. Remember, these are multiple layers. I got 2 patterns and I've got gradients as well. And so I selected all those and I would put them in front of the house, Command F. So now they're on the house layer, not on the grass layer. And I had hid the cow. I'm going to unhide the cow. And how did I hide the cow? I went to Object, Hide Selection, Command or Control 3. That hides it. And then I can just slide my finger over, my thumb over, and I can say Show All. And so now I've got this cow. It's hiding behind the bushes, but it's in front of the house. See that? So wherever I want to put that cow, starting to go behind the bushes. And maybe one more cow, I'll put it in, peeking out of the fence. Maybe that cow I'll make a little bigger. Okay, so, and maybe I want to rotate it. I'll go to the edge here, rotate. There we go. That's fun. So what's the story? The calves have taken mom and dad's flying saucer and come to Earth, and big elder sibling cow was supposed to be watching it, but was watching TV instead, playing video games instead. And so now it's coming to Earth to collect its siblings. And the problem is now some more fun for pizzazz. It's trying to beam them up, right? So I'm going to get L for the ellipse tool, and I'll come in, we come in piece, and I'm going to draw an ellipse here. It doesn't really matter what color it is, but I'll color it pink just so you can see it. I'm going to make sure everything else is unlocked except for the grass and the sky. I'm going to lock those layers because I don't want to affect those layers. But so those are locked. But I've got this layer here selected, and I'm going to select everything else under that layer. So now now Shape Builder tool, Shift M again. Remember I showed you we could combine things with that, and I could do that here, and that would all become one shape. I don't want that. Here's the other neat thing the Shape Builder tool does. If you hold the Option key on a Mac or Alt key on a PC, you see it gets this little minus. When I click that, and I'll click it again, hey, check it out. I poked a hole in the house. That's fun. So what's happening? Well, big sibling cow trying to beam up the other cows actually has the destruct ray on, and it's poking holes in our house. So let's cut a section out of our chimney here. I'll select everything, Shift M, Shape Builder tool, Option, poke, poke. And why did I turn the sky off or lock it? Well, I didn't want to poke clear to wide. It would poke a hole in the sky as well. I'll get the ellipse tool. Maybe we'll shoot a hole in the bush here in the side of the house. Select all, Shift M, minus, 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 minus. So it's chopping up the trees. L for ellipse. Let's shoot some holes in the whoops. Well, that's fun. Now they have that one selected. maybe I'll just get to the edge of it, zoom up so you can see what I'm doing. And I'll get to the edge of it and do a little rotate because a little bit of havoc is occurring here. So now I can say, okay, I'll take that shape and that shape. I can select these two pieces, and all three have to be selected. Those two slats and the ellipse, get the delete those shapes like that by holding Option. I'll do the same thing here. Select those, hold Option with the shape builder tool, and click, or Alt if you're on a PC. Click, click, and I need to get rid of this piece here as well, so I'll click it. Got a little sliver. Click that, and so this is kind of defying. We'll have that one fall on the ground. Okay, so why are the other cows hiding? Because Big Sibling has Destructo Ray on it, poking holes in things. So bushes, chimney house. So, and that's why they're pulling the drapes. If I wanted to put another cow in here, I could do that because it's all layers. Remember, I've got 1 layer, 2 layer, 3 layers. So what if I took this cow? It's locked. Okay, it's on my grass layer. I'll copy that cow. I'm going to lock the grass layer. I'm going to put it on the house layer. I'll say Command F, paste in front, and I'll have it. I'll flop it. So I'll hit the reflect tool. Reflect tool. Double click it. It reflected it vertically. I'll click OK. And I want it peeking out from those curtains. Okay. So I can do this a couple of ways. First way I'm going to show you, I've got a tail poking out that I don't want to happen, and that's going to be a problem. But first thing I could do, I could just select with the selection tool, V for the selection tool. I could say, okay, that's one of these curtains, right? And so I'll move that in front. Command Shift right bracket, it's in front. That's fun. And then I could lock that layer, Command 2 or Object Lock Selection. Now that will allow me to select this one, and I'll Command Shift right bracket, move that in front as well. I still got the tail going on here, and that's not ideal. So I could do that another way. I could come in and delete all that stuff, or I could say, all right, I only want the cow showing up here. I could hit M for the rectangle tool, this one, and I could just draw a marquee here, and that stroke's a problem. So I'm going to get rid of the stroke. I don't want to see it. Then I'll move this shape just to the edge of the drapes and the edge of the drapes. And it doesn't matter that it's filled with drapes right now. I can fill it with red. Oh, I'm on stroke, so that's not going to help. I've got to click on stroke to be selecting the stroke. I'll fill it with anything brown. And so I'll select that cow and this brown area. The brown selected, the cow selected. See that? But the brown area is on top. Now I'm going to go to Object. I showed you a clipping mask. I'm going to go to Clipping Mask Make, Command or Control 7, and it's going to mask it to just that shape. Mask. So that's fun. So I'm a little more involved than you need to be for this lecture activity. It's only worth 10 points. The point of this lecture activity is to show you what should be happening between the phases. So your grayscale on your grid phase 2, your flat color on phase 3, and look how much more pizzazz has come into the story. Obviously I added, the cows, but other than that, it's all the same stuff, just gradients added. I've added color, I've added dimensionality, I've added pattern, I've added texture, and it's a lot of pizzazz. It's a lot more fun. And I've got a story. And so there we go. So next class, we're gonna look at your grid phase 4. And everything you learn on this lecture activity is due by the end of this week. So today's, let's see, February 28th. You have until March 3rd, that's Friday, to get this done by 11:59 p.m. because I need you to get this one done in order to, I like my new demo better than this one, what I did for you guys today, because I can put curtains on it. But you don't have to do that. But you can see Command Y, all those curtains, all that stuff going on is just the same exact shape stacked once, twice, 3 times. And so that's the sort of things you can do on your assignment. You could also say, I'm going to select both of those and say, I'll copy. Or you could say, I'm going to copy, paste in front just one of them and say, what if I put some textures in that for, what do curtain textures look like? And I could add textures as well. So don't have to do that, but there we go. That's fun. Then I'll go to, I could scale it. I could go to blending modes and I'll tell it to screen. Screen's going to be really good here. And then I'll knock the opacity down. And I got a little bit of pattern. Or this would be a fun one. Actually, some of those, I'll just leave it with that. You might be tempted to go with your swatches. I'm going to discourage you for a moment. In the swatch library, you found patterns. Remember I said there were different ones? Decorative. And so you go, what are these decorative ones? And so that's those ones. And so, you could be fish and stuff like that. But I want to see your drawing on this. That's kind of cool. It's an MC Escher fish thing, or a different patterns. Or you may have found in your swatches, the other one, Open Swatch Library. I'm going to go to patterns and I'll go to monster patterns. And then in there, there's some one of these has flowers in it. And so I don't really want you using those for I don't want you relying on these patterns for your design. So just go, basic patterns. And I'm more interested that you're using opacity and blending modes. So that's fun. Added a little pizzazz with pattern to those drapes as well. That's fun. And so now it's one square that's just patterns. You can see that. It's one square that's the gradient, another square that's the gradient, another square that's the window. So altogether, 1 rectangle, 2 rectangles, 3 rectangles, 4 rectangles, all stacked. So you can do that, but you can get some neat, pretty cool effects by doing that. So have fun with this one. It doesn't have to be as involved as mine, but I want to see that you understand. You won't get full credit if I don't see blending modes and custom gradients on this piece. You don't, have fun with the Pathfinder tool. There's Shape Builder tool as well, but and then you learn transparency as well. If I see this cow, if I see this at where it's opaque and I can't see that cow, well, then I'm going to think you don't understand opacity very well. So I want to see that cow there flying the flying saucer. So that's a fun little activity.